You may have noticed that lots and lots of modern metal productions have synths following the guitar lines. This creates a different feel for riffs, thickens them up, and somewhat digitizes the guitar sound, filling it with the harmonic context that is otherwise missing. Alright, here goes. Without. With. Sounds cool, right? As you overdub, or let's call it reamp, your guitars with synths, you may be struggling to find the synth tone that fits the mix, supports the guitars, yet doesn't overstep on them. You may also struggle to find the riffs themselves that work for synth layering. Let's discover both the technical and the creative aspects of layering guitars with synths in this video. I'm Dr. Mike Trubetskov, the mad scientist of metal, and I'm here to bring valuable information on modern metal production and mixing. Like and subscribe to never miss it out. Let's go! As anything in production process, I suggest starting with the why. Why do you want synths to support your riff? The answers may be the following. You want to achieve extra fatness. You are after a special atmosphere. You want to give your guitars the extra edge. Or you may be after a digitized sonic signature that isn't there with the guitar tone on its own. Either way, I suggest treating synth layers similarly to how you treat your guitars. This means double track the synths separately. Use left and right stereo placement. Use distortion and don't make the synths overly piercing. Mid-reach synth tones that complement and extend your guitar tone work really well. A good idea is to add such synth layers after the guitar tone has been produced and dialed in, because that would allow you to complement it rather than guess. For the traditional synth layering, a fat lead sound with some top-end filtering works really well. Alright, so let me just show you how I achieved such sounds from start to finish. I'm using Logic Pro X in this tutorial, which comes with a bunch of cool and free built-in sounds. These aren't the best, but they get the job done, and I wanted to create a tutorial on something that is easily available for you. You can download free synthesizers too, but in my experience they sound a bit worse. Or you can use outboard analog synths, which I won't be showing you today because that would be bragging, but that sounds much better otherwise though. So, this is the lines that I implemented. In this video, once again, I'm using a free multitracks provided by the website called tight-sound.site. Let's start from scratch. So, as I mentioned before, my approach for such synths is treating them as guitars. Left and right, so this is the left, this is the right, somewhat separate performances, and we'll get to that. But first, let's just start with the basic sound. You need MIDI information. These multitracks did come with MIDI, so I was lucky. If you don't have MIDI, you will need to transcribe your riff into MIDI quite accurately. And in fact, it has to match the guitar really closely, otherwise it will sound loose and off. You hopefully have done it during the pre-production stage. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will link to the video, an old video of mine, which shows pre-production quite thoroughly. Anyways, let's not get distracted. And let's take a look at the sound. I'll go to Alchemy. Kinda works already, but I wanted to take this a bit further and create some difference. Which is, I wanna drop the cutoff filter a bit lower so that the top end isn't as present, because we don't want that synth to stand out. We actually want it to blend into the guitars and just give it a bit of an edge rather than be noticeably up front in the mix. And that's why I can cut it off and maybe increase some resonance here. You can play around with some filters, find the sounds that you like, and then in order to make it a bit less static, I want to introduce some modulation. And so I want to add modulation from LFO1, right? And so I don't want it fast. That's your start. Now, in order to treat this as a guitar, as you know, you need a separate performance of this synth. And because this is MIDI, we grab this synthesizer here, create a duplicate, drop the MIDI again here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go Function, Transform, Humanize, and then select and upright. You can see that all the notes have moved a little bit, similarly to what happens if you play the guitar riff twice. Let's check them out, left and right. And there you have it. Finally, in order for the synth to work, I suggest grabbing some distortion and distorting that similarly to a guitar. I like to use tape distortion. You can use tube. You can even use a guitar amp sim. Whatever you like, whatever you prefer, whatever is in your taste territory, experiment with that. Check it out. Without. I like the grit. Now with the guitar. Cool. I'm pretty much happy with that, and this was just a draft quick demonstration for you. This is a starting point to experiment with. Let's consider a different scenario when you want a synth to stand out in a different way. Maybe you want to try some unorthodox sound. Let's see. This one. Is it the same? Yep. Grab it to the second channel, distort, see, it gives a different edge and a different feel to the riff, a little bit of a metallic sort of colder tone to it, which may or may not be what you're after. So you need to find the tone and experiment with that, somewhat filter the top end, distort it, and it fits like a glove. Now, you may be wondering which part and which riff fits for such layering. In my experience, single note riffs work the best, whereas chugs may sound quite muddy, especially if you introduce the actual chords into the synth, so I would avoid that. Let's go through the fragment of the track and see what are the best beats to emphasize with the synth in order to maintain the right dynamics, the right flow for the track. From the start, obviously not here. Makes sense to get it in here. Yep, keep it here too. Get rid of it here. Otherwise it's too much. Let the riff breathe a bit. And then expand. Now see, this one wouldn't work. This sounds like crap. And I would avoid this next part as well, as you would be otherwise entering the very proggy territory which you may not wanna sound like. Don't forget that this is just a demonstration. It is also dependent on the other elements of the track, which are vocals, which are leads, which are overall saturation of the song with some elements. Just make sure that it evolves and tells the story with the bigger and smaller moments and gives way to the important stuff, which is guitar riffs. And that's pretty much how you achieve the synth overdubbing for your guitars in a nutshell. It's not that sophisticated, however, it requires quite a precise approach on producing the synth tone as well as selecting the fragments for it. Please, if you have any questions, get in touch in comments. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and see you next time. Take care.